I hope you had a good lunch. My name is Jürgen Brandstätter, and today I'm going to talk about persistent lexical entrainment in HRI. And obviously I couldn't have done this paper without my wonderful colleagues, Clay Beckner, who can be here today, and Eddie, Eduardo Sandoval and Christoph Batnek are here in the first row. And obviously it was not possible without my lab, the HIT Lab New Zealand and the New Zealand Institute for Language, Brain and Behavior. So let me tell you a bit about lexical entrainment. What does it mean? So in short, it pretty much means accommodating each other's language to be understood. So an example sentence for that is the best in English. In German, and here in Vienna or in Upper Germany, it would be called Das ist das Beste. But I'm from Upper Austria, so there I would say Des ist das Beste. Das ist das Beste, Des ist das Beste. And that's a dialect, and I do this to accommodate the others, so they can understand me. In English I would do the same, so in USA I say that's the best, and when I'm in New Zealand I say that's the beast. Right? The best, the beast. But since we're in Vienna, I want to give you a little example of a Viennese a thing that happened a couple of years in Vienna, kind of interesting. It was a group called the Kocher, and they looked like this. So they had a healthy time in the solar studio. I guess it was like a cold summer apparently. And the interesting part is they had their special outfit. It was like they had a neon hat and they had a scarf, but they also had some special words which were interesting. So they always used bam, fix, weiter, which was a typical thing they always said. So kind of, I go to the conference, weiter, bam. And the interesting thing is that it became like a hip thing in Austria to say, which is weird, sorry. I did it too. And so we accommodated to them. And so the question in our case is, well, we talk about persistent lexical entrainment. So let's say we have like some hip Kocher robots in Vienna, and I'm in Vienna in summer, and I think, whoa, you know, some cool people. So I'm gonna hang out with them. The more I hang out with them, the more I kind of turn into them, right? So I get my neon cap and I get my sun studio time. And well, the summer is over. And now I kind of have to make a choice, if you would say so. So let's say I go back to my hometown, and what do I do when I leave them? So will I fall back to my previous me, or will I stay persistent? And that's the question we wanted to ask in our experiment. So we wanted to know, is lexical entrainment persistent after the interaction? So do we just entrain or accommodate to the robot, because we know the robot might not be able to understand us properly, or does the robot affect us and that stays after the interaction? Also, we wanted to see if there's a difference between humans and robots, so we had an actor to compare those two. The way we did this is we created an experimental setting that had, we called it a pre, main and post task, and in the pre-task we had the participant alone in a room, and we asked them, we showed them some images, like here, 2 images, and they could say the word they would naturally use. So for example, an alligator for the first image, or a factory for the second. Then we had this interaction with the robot, and the robot would then say, for example, not an opposite, an alternative word. So we had a crocodile, and before they would say alligator, or we had pollution for this image of a factory. And then in post-task, the robot left, so they were alone and they could fall back into their normal or their usual way they are, and we could then measure, comparing the pre and post-task, if the robot had an effect or not, or respectively, if the actor had an effect. The setup, the task itself, was done with a navigation task or a map task. So we had a map with those hexagon tiles and the icons on it, and if we were in the collaboration task, I would say to the robot, please go to the house or go to the boot, and the robot would then walk to the boot, and the robot would then in the next task tell me, go to the terms, for example. So on the right side you see this little character, this is you on the map. And in the pre and post task, the participant would would use a speech recognition system and navigates themselves, so they would move forward on their own. And that way we could figure out what words they chose when they were alone. So the setup was, they sat next to each other, opposite to each other, they had a screen, and they saw each other's map and the map of their partner. And as we were interested in, is it actually possible that lexical entrainment stays after the interaction? Not so much what makes it possible. So we tried to make an interaction that's as persuasive as possible. And so what we did is we created an in and out group. So we told them that the participant and the robot, they're in the same group and have to compete against others. They didn't exist, but they create like a group situation. Then we gave them, the robot, a female voice and a female name. According to research, female voices are, on average, more persuasive. And the one caveat we had is we wanted to make sure that only the voice, that only the body shape makes the difference, nothing else. So we actually recorded the robot voice and used it for the actor. So we told the participants they are in a controlled condition. And that way we knew it's only the human shape and nothing else. Okay, so the questions again, the lexical entrainments after the interaction, and the human versus the robot. So here, the answer for the first question. So first of all, yes, it's possible. And what you see here on the right side, so the human is the actor, and the right is the robot. And you always have the before and after condition. And the two colors mean, the green one is the matching color, and that means we had words we wanted to be shifted, in other words, we had the words we wanted to be shifted. And sometimes it was the case that participants started to, they used those words already beforehand. So, there's a chance, so we have kind of an offset. But in both situations, you can see that the participants and the robot, or the actors and the robot could create assistant lexical entrainment. So as you see, the human is a bit stronger than the robot. You can see this also here in this chart. It's a density plot, so where you can see the human is a bit stronger than the robot, but you have a huge overlap. So they work in a similar fashion. Okay, sorry. So now we can say, well, robots can affect human language after they left. So what does this mean for us? What do we learn from that? It's an interesting question, but what does it mean? So we thought, when you look at word choice in usual terms, we can see if you ask people to draw an image of forefathers or ancestors, you would see that the word father would create a male thought, let's say this way, and so people would draw a much more likely image of females in this drawing. The same is here in the German language. We don't really make a distinction between male and female jobs, for example. And so if you have a job offer for professors versus professorinnen, which would be female one or a neutral one, then you see that if you do the neutral one, you have actually more women applying for the job. And you might know this famous because situation in the supermarket where you can say, please let me forward because I'm a doctor, or let me forward because I want to go forward. And the because is the interesting thing why people let you forward, not because of the reason. So the way you test this, so we tested this, is through a valence shift, that's how it's called. So we have one of those famous examples is, who was the marketing genius that called them killer whales instead of sea pandas? So you have like this object, and you can use a positive or negative connotated word to it. And we did the same thing. And the way we did it is, we extended our study a bit by asking participants before the pre and post task how they called the icons we showed them. Sorry, not how they called, how they rated the icons, positive and negative. If it was positive, the robot tried to use a negative synonym, or in the other way around. And then we tested them again. And again, what we could show, and I'll just say it how it is, we could show that robots can actually create a valence shift. And, which is interesting, is this valence shift was only only happened or appeared when first the lexical entrainment worked. So if a person would use now killer whale, let's say, instead of a gunman, instead of police officer, for example, then they would also change the way they perceive this object. And from here on, it's interesting to think about what that means in the current situation. We have all those discussions about fake news and alternative facts and so on. And now we also have like Amazon's Alexa and so on. And we have now all those robots living with us, and we talk to them, and they probably connected to one other company or so. What power do they have? And we know from this research already that it is possible. So we should start thinking maybe a bit about policies and where to go, what should we do, what should we allow them. But yeah, that's kind of the caveat from this research. So if you have any questions, please ask me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your talk. And I hope to know that there is the same notion about the robot meme, that's a meme turned to another robot from human to human. So I want to know the difference between the robot meme notion about the motion difference, motion influence, and also the lexical influence. What's the difference of these two notions?
Of the two notions or motions?
The robot meme is handling about the behavior, but it's handles about the lexical notion. So is there any difference on here about the critical point?
Sorry, it's hard to understand you.
Robot meme is proposed in the Roman conference in the 10 years ago one. This is about the behavior, but it's also behaviors. And this is a lexical study, so I think there is a difference out here. So I hope to know the difference of the two studies.
Can you repeat? I cannot understand the question, sorry.
Do you remember the study you presented at Roma?
I was not at the Roman conference, so
Okay,
no.
I understand.
Sorry, I just couldn't hear.
Okay, one further question while Jonathan is setting up.
Yes, so I was just wondering, you said you managed to influence your participants with the robots in the sense that afterwards they would perceive certain words more negatively. Did you try to instead give like a positive influence?
So the robots created a positive or negative effect on the way people think, or behave in retrospective. So if the robot uses positive terms for objects, the participants would think positively about those objects, and then the other way around, if you would do it negatively, they would think negatively about them. Is this right answer?
Yes, I was just wondering if potentially you could use this for, I don't know, depressed people who have depression, for instance, that to induce positive thinking.
Well, that's an interesting way. Well, I assume you could do, but I'm not a psychologist, so I actually don't know, but it sounds like a very interesting experiment.
Okay, super, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jürgen, again.